At a news conference today, Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Javier Becerra said they are prepared to go every step of the way to protect immigrant families.
News 8's Brandon Lewis is in our newsroom with what we know tonight. Brandon?
Well, Becerra says if the same standard applied to Americans, nearly half would be considered burdens under this proposed rule. They claim California is particularly at risk because the president's proposed rules. We are home to a large immigrant population, and they argue the benefits are intended to ensure everyone has access to good nutrition, health care, and housing.
This Trump rule weaponizes nutrition, health care, and housing. It acts like a ticking time bomb.
California Attorney General Javier Becerra announced California will sue the Trump administration to stop a new rule that could prevent immigrants from getting green cards if they use public assistance programs.
What they are doing is un-American. Not everyone starts off life with millions gifted by daddy.
California joins more than a dozen states in suing the Trump administration. The state's suit is separate, though, because leaders believe the rule disproportionately impacts Californians. More than a quarter of the state's population are immigrants, and half of all children have at least one immigrant parent.
It's remarkable what this administration is up to. It's insidious beyond words, and California will have none of it.
This week, President Trump announced an expansion of the public charge immigration rule. It would allow officials to deny green cards to legal immigrants who received public services or are deemed likely to use them in the future, such as Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing.
You know, it's about America first. I don't think it's fair to have the American taxpayer paying for people to come into the United States.
But Governor Newsom fired back at the president.
And he has a particular problem with brown people. Not even immigrants. It's noted we're not talking about illegal immigrants as it relates to the public charge. We're talking about legal immigrants.
The new rule is scheduled to go into effect in October. Becerra says the state will soon seek an injunction to block the rule from going into place while the lawsuit makes its way through the courts.
It's one of the reasons we've had so much success against the Trump administration in court, because they keep trying to change the law by breaking the law, and you can't do that.
State officials say they are already seeing a chilling effect as people withdraw applications for assistance because of the potential impact. Becerra says that it brings with it economic consequences for everyone, like grocery stores, landlords, and healthcare providers. Barbara Lee.
All right, Brandon, thank you. We'd like to know what you think. Do you agree with President Trump's rule blocking green cards for legal immigrants on public assistance? Yes or no? Let us know by going to CBS8.com/vote, and we'll update the results for you a little later in our newscast.